Now, I know what you're all thinking. Sync, how the heck are you going to make a video about Sawada? He's only existed for, what, half a fight at maximum. He doesn't have much of a backstory. In fact, his backstory is just fragmented off of Lahito's backstory because he's already a side character. So how am I going to make a video about a side character's side character? Watch me. You see, Sawada is actually one of the few fighters in the series who has a relationship with his employer outside of the fighting and outside the Kengan Association. They actually go out together sometimes. They'll, go see movies. They'll buy clothes. They'll spend time hanging out with each other, getting drinks and such. Kind of like Cosmo and his employer, but more so like an actual best friend kind of deal because they are around the same age. So despite being polar opposites in interest, at least, they do enjoy each other's company thoroughly so. And, opposites attract, and that's kind of what Sawada's personality really is. He is really opposite for what he actually does enjoy. He's a ballet dancer that enjoys fighting. Now, the reason that he actually does the fighting is something that we're going to get into later on. But with that being said, what is good y'all seeing here? And today we're going to talk about the bird of... Nah, I don't like that one. What is good y'all seeing here? And today we're going to talk about the zestiest fighter in Kengan Ashura, Sawada Kiezaburo. Now, Sawada is a fighter that doesn't actually have much real take to the story. It's more so just like a character to exist just for the sake of existence, if that makes sense. So Sawada fills in the blank void of what if character X did Y? Whereas what if we had someone who did ballet was a fighter? That's pretty much the premise of what Sawada's character was really enveloped on, and Sandro actually stated that he did create the premises of, not the premise, the baseline for Sawada's character for even making his own character design. He knew he wanted a ballet dancer that was homosexual and was a fighter, but he didn't just want him to be a bit of a throwaway character, so he gave him a little bit of a backstory. He actually planned to go more in depth with the backstory at first. So let me just talk about that real quick. So when it comes to Sawada's backstory, we actually got the abridged version in the final cut. Originally, we're going to talk about how Sawada came from this family of Japanese traditional dancers where he demonstrated enough talent to then become the heir of their family. And then some accident, we don't know what the accident was, but some accident happened and it caused him to become a fighter. Now, if I were to make an assumption, I would only say that this had to be some kind of way tied up to Toyo Electric because given the theme of Kengan Ashura, everyone seems to hate Toyo Electric for some reason. So I wouldn't be so surprised to hear that Sawada's family may got like, I don't know, maybe they cut off the lights in their dance studio or something and someone got hurt. Like that episode of South Park when Butters threw the shoe and then everyone just crashed down. Like maybe the lights just went out while someone was dancing and then someone made a mistake and then, some people got hurt. That's something that could have been realistic. But we don't exactly know what this accident was because it was cut out in the main story. So Sanjo did plan on going about this later on in Omega, and we're still waiting to hear about that. Much like how we're waiting to hear about the other appearances that Sawada has never made in Omega, because he's only made 2 appearances in Omega. And out of those 2 appearances, one was his actual person in one little frame. But we'll get to that later. So Sanjo already knew that he wanted to make an effeminate fighter, so he told Daro, look, AOD, I need you to draw a character who's androgynous and has hair like a kabuki lion, which if you don't know, by the way, I'm going to show a picture of a kabuki lion on screen. That's pretty accurate for what Daro did, okay? And that's how the mushroom head Sawada was born. Now, here's a cool thing about Sawada is that his namesake, meaning that what he was named after, was Kenji Sawada, who was the lead vocalist for the Japanese band The Tigers back in the 60s. Now, here's another thing about Kenji Sawada is that he had the nickname Julie that he got from Julie Andrews because he idolized her for some reason. But that aside, it doesn't mean that Sawada has any kind of connection towards like Murata Keiji from the Warring States period. Sanjo makes that very clear that they're not related in any kind of sort of fashion. Don't know what that means or what that actually implies, but hey, he wrote it down. So outside of that, Sawada is one of the few fighters in the series, or only fighters in the series, that actually has a feminine side to them. And it's really funny because I remember on my first watch of Kengan Ashura way back when, I didn't think Sawada was a guy until my second watch of Kengan Ashura. So I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one that thought that Sawada was a girl most of the time. I did. I can't be the only one. Please comment down below if when you were watching this, you thought Sawada was a girl as well, because I can't be the only one thinking this. It wasn't really until I started taking his story seriously, where I was listening to his backstory between Sawada and Lehito, that I put two and two together. Then I realized, oh, wait a minute, that's a guy. That's how I actually learned that Sawada was a guy. So go figure. So with that being said, let's go on ahead and talk about his backstory a little bit more, rather than the backstory that we actually got in the main story. And so the backstory that we got was that Lehito and Sawada did go to opposing schools, where Sawada was a top dog at Karai High School and Lehito was the top dog at Bakata High School. They fought each other extremely often, almost like cats and dogs whenever they met each other. And this made Sawada and Lehito have a newfound respect for each other. So much so that Sawada is always saying that, yeah, sorry, Lehito, you can't lose to nobody except for me. Which also implies that Lehito loses to Sawada, at least, before Omega took place, because Omega Lehito is a whole different beast. Anyways, let's go ahead and talk about his personality, okay? So Sawada's personality can be boiled down to one sentence. Ballet is love, ballet is life. All right. So he believes in having proper manners, proper etiquette, and that above all else, people should be fair to one another. You should treat people with respect. You should not be some disgusting, vile, rude, like putrid human being. And I don't think that's too far of a, belief system to have. Then you have one thing when it comes to Sawada, is that the type of people that he actually hates are people who do this exact thing. People like Ren. People, wait, is it Ren or Ray? No, I'm pretty sure it's Ren. I'm pretty sure his name, I get those two mixed up more often than you think. So I'm pretty sure it's Ren that I'm talking about here. But when Ren, Meguro, and Julius all pulled up on Tagawa, he was heated. He was pissed off. Now you got to factor in at this moment, Sawada has multiple reasons to be angry. He is, number one, angry that his match got canceled. Number two, angry that his employer is held up. But number three, angry that one of his best friends is held up because some random person has their hand in her mouth. And then number four, why is Meguro looking at her like that? I'm never gonna get over that. I don't like that, bro. That's weird. Anyways, Sawada then I gotta give him props, bro. This man was holding up the jokes the entire time while he was serious. So I can imagine just Sawada being a person while he's fighting you that he's gonna rip some jokes left and right. Because when he was up against Meguro and everyone, he said, you know what? Don't worry, sit down. Hope you guys were good at school because I'm going to teach y'all some physics. Then he said, you know what? Don't worry. Come on, come get this lesson. Don't worry, my tuition is outstanding, okay? You got student loans on top of student loans. You got crippling debt you're going to have to deal with. And we all know what happened once, he tried to collect from Julius, that tuition that Julius owed Sawada. That joke went way too far. Anyways, he does have a hothead personality when he gets that way. He only gets that way when people treat, women and other people with disrespect. And he also gets that way when he's hit with a homophobic slur, which is a fairly, normal response. Another thing that I did notice is that in the side chapters, when he had a little interaction with Inaba. Now, in the beginning of Ashura, okay, he was disgusted with Inaba, but he then grew to like him because Inaba knitted him a sweater out of his own hair. As disgusting as that sounds, so long as Sawada doesn't know that it was actually made out of, Inaba's hair, Sawada loved it. So he's one of those people that is very easy to please. You give him a gift, give him a sweater, he's going to be happy so long as it's beautiful. Now it's time to get to the real questions, okay? Now, Sandro, I got to give it to you. He was really smart in how he did it. He never blatantly said that Sawada was gay. He just had Sawada, commenting on all the male fighters, that they looked good. He commented Ray, said that he looked hot. And his favorite artist, musical artist, Village People. A musical group that portrayed macho gay fantasy personas. Then you have the movie that he most recently seen, In and Out, a famous comedic gay movie. Now listen here, Sandro. That was pretty low-hanging fruit in my opinion. I already talked a little bit about his relationship with Tagawa, but I also gotta mention that while doing this research, I learned that Tagawa was the youngest female executive in the Kengan Association. So I gotta clap it up for her, okay? That's some good shit right there. That's kind of unexpected, especially because she is in such a like young person field. I mean, her company is called Murder Music. So, and it's kind of funny that Sawada is representing a company called Murder Music, and he has so many like people when he was made that were inspired from music in real life. So I just thought that was kind of funny. And what's also pretty funny is Tagawa's taste in men is that she likes big macho men with very, very long hair. So I don't think Sawada fits the bill with that one, but of course Sawada, and of course Tagawa doesn't fit Sawada's bill either. Now they introduced Sawada's fighting style by having this one karate practitioner say, "Hey sensei, what would you say is the most difficult person for you to fight?" And then this man just solemnly looks over as he tries to gather his life because he's looking back and he already knows what his answer is. And he says, like he told them in the most solemn and sad voice I'd imagine, as he says, "Never, ever fight a ballet dancer because they have what's called full body control. And you don't ever want to be on the tail end of somebody who's spinning on their left pinky toe and then kicking you in the face at the same time. It's beyond embarrassing. Trust me, I've been there." That's kind of what I feel like he is thinking right now. And that's essentially what Sawada does to fight. Because he practiced ballet all of his life, he has the ability to control his entire body from any point given. And that's why he's able to spin around on just his toe and then produce enough G-force in order to knock out a person's cervical spine. Probably the only character with flexibility on par with Sawada would be Tachibana, but of course I'm the only one that's allowed to know that. Anyways, now, this doesn't work, of course, against Julius when he did try it against them, but it doesn't mean that we don't actually know the full extent of the power. It's just unfortunate that Sawada was having to use his ability against the two people who literally, well, in Megaro's sense, doesn't actually feel pain, so he really just said, fuck that. And then Julius, who is just too strong to feel pain, so he just said, fuck that. So a lot of things did not go for Sawada's way, but that's just how it is. But the premise of how he fights is that he spins around and then produces enough G-force in order to knock out his opponent. Now, his flexibility and balance is insane, and being able to control himself while spinning is something that not a lot of fighters can actually do. In fact, I think only Karo is the only one that can stand on top of his pinky toe and still remain perfectly balanced when he has, like, you know, that little C action and everything. And so with his entire like arsenal involving fighting secure, let's go ahead and talk about what he did in Ashura. Now, we already touched upon this a little bit, of course, but we're going to start off from the beginning because he doesn't make that many appearances. So in the main story, Sawada and Murder Music are one of the companies that were able to get into the tournament by winning that little brawl that Oma and Lehito won. In fact, when Sawada met Lehito at the brawl, he's like, "Yo, what the hell are you doing out here?" And then Sawada didn't even bother like fighting anyone else. He was just too busy ripping on Lehito. Those two, they love each other, okay? It's like a really big love-hate relationship. But after that motion, that's when he then, we see him chilling out by the beach and he sees Inaba crawling around and gets spooked out. Then he goes pretty silent for the most part until his match shows up. Now, when his match arrived, it was immediately a forfeit because Tagawa was held hostage by Ren and the gang. Now, of course, like I mentioned earlier, Sawada didn't like that. And so Sawada stood up. He went down there, he found all three of them, he saw Ren's hand, thumb in her mouth. That sounded disgusting out of context, and he was livid. And so that's when he wanted to take all three of them on. I got to give him props for that, okay? Sawada taking on all three of them, like, I got to give you props, bro, because those are all three killers right there. And he didn't bat an eye about it too. So Sawada actually does have what I call a fighter spirit, where he is very, very determined when it comes to fighting. He wasn't at all scared to fight all three of them. In fact, he was fully prepared to take them on one by one at a time, or even all three at once. And so don't ever believe that just because a person does ballet that they are weak. By no means at all. This man Sawada is more of a man than most of the people on the entire series, in my humblest opinion, of course. So with that, he then took on Meguro, knocked him out. Then Meguro got back up and said, "Bro, that was weird. I ain't hurt though. That one hit a little bit harder though." And so it woke up Meguro. Meguro was about to go crazy and attack him. And then Julius said, "Nah, I got this." Then Sawada charged up. Okay, this man was ready. He was feeling himself. He hit the spin and everything, hit the cervical spine. And then Julius just like rolls his trap up and just blocked it. It was just a trap. I'm sorry, if someone blocks my kick or blocks my punch with a trap, I'm backing them away. I'm calling it a day after that. But unfortunately, Sawada couldn't do that in time, and so Julius grabbed his leg and snapped it like a Slim Jim, then threw him against the wall, just manhandling him left and right. And so he was actually about to die, realistically. Oh no, he wasn't about to die. No. He was about to have his leg entirely shattered, like for good, until he was saved by Kazi the Rook. All right. If Kazi the Swift didn't show up and save Sawada, I don't think he'd be ever coming back and walking again or being a fighter on top of that in Omega. But he's not a fighter in Omega. Let's be real. Okay, let's just cut this for a second, okay? After Ashura, Sawada doesn't exist. All right, let's just live off of that. That Sawada is now living peacefully as a ballet instructor. I like that idea a lot better than what they've been doing with him. Because in Omega, he is one of the prospective fighters that Kazi thinks of in order to go against Purgatory, but he didn't make the cut. So he does appear in Omega 200 chapters later in the Berserker Bowl when he loses a match to the Falcon in his jank ass toe. So you can kind of get the feeling about how I feel like the series is just kind of, you know, watering down Sawada, just push him out of the window. And I don't think he's ever going to come back in the series, unfortunately. Maybe Flahito pulls some kind of like nonsense, then Sawada's going to come back out of nowhere and say, I knew you were going to do that, or something like that. I can see that being the case where Sandro essentially just forgot all about Sawada and then just brings him back in randomly. Overall, though, I will say that as a character in the series, Sawada, like I said, he just served the purpose of being a what-if scenario. What if a person who did ballet was a fighter? What if we had a homosexual fighter where he was, you know, really interested in music? What if we had the person who was what if we have a character who was based off of this, that, and the third? There was a whole lot of things that could have been done a little bit differently or even just better, in my opinion, because for what they hyped him up to be, they said that Sawada's kicks are supposed to be higher than any martial artist kicks because he practices ballet and he has full control over his entire body. But we never get to see that ever used because he never really lands a kick on anyone who could actually feel pain from his kicks. In fact, the Falcon blocked his kick. So you're telling me that this man's kick is capable of being blocked by the Falcon in his jank ass toe? This is a disappointment, if you would. But as a big fan of Sawada, for reasons I won't explain, I will say that, you know, he's alright as a character. Not the best, not the greatest, not the strongest, but he's definitely not the weakest. All right. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the video on Sawada. Comment down below who you guys want to see next, because it's definitely not going to be Inaba, and it's definitely not going to be Morobuchi. Nah, I'm just kidding. Thank you all for watching. Hope you guys take care, and I'll see you guys for the next one. Y'all have a good one.